Well, we got involved, we know Richard very well. Richard directed and wrote P.S. I Love You for us, which is a very successful movie we did a couple of years ago. We've been trying to find another project to do together. So Richard expressed interest in this particular project, and we thought it was interesting material. We knew Richard would do a great job adapting the novel into a screenplay. I think Richard's one of the great screenwriters in the world, but what I think he does better than anyone is adapt books to screenplays. We were aware because the book had been brought to us, yes, so we knew about it when it was coming out, and the idea of addressing the idea of magic, casters, witches in a very sophisticated kind of a way is something that we found fascinating, and Richard had a very unique way of getting into the material that was different than a lot of these other sort of young adult books, and so we were fascinated, so we said, why not? They're very serious actors, they're very literate in terms of their understanding of material. They're both very handsome and pretty, but they're not, they're not poppy, so to speak. And so I think, again, Richard really we wanted to cast the movie in a way that was grounded. We wanted to cast it that felt real, not something we had pulled, that was a Hollywood-esque version. And so, I think they're different. I think that's part of the interesting challenge of the movie with all these movies is how does your audience respond? Do they see these actors the way they saw the characters when they read the book? And that's something time will tell.
I think the other thing that Richard was looking for that is a very delicate balance is there's quite a bit of humor in his adaptation, and an actor that's able to play the romance and the seriousness, but also be able to have the levity and the humor that he wants the piece to have, I think was a very difficult challenge to find actors with that range of ability and are also young. So that to me was the primary creative challenge.
Pretty involved, they've been down here visiting, we certainly talk to them regularly. They reviewed different drafts of the script. I mean, they're extremely supportive of Richard and the adaptation, which I think, as you know as well as anyone, is critical with these kind of movies. You want the author's support, and we're really very grateful to have it. Right. Well, that's great. I mean, what's interesting you say that is, I'm happy to hear it. It's a subjective judgment. We all pick up a book, we read a book, we have an image in our mind as to what those characters are, and we think he's perfect. We think he's terrific, and we're hopeful that the majority of the audience feels the way that you do.
There are
6 or 7,
but with like 4 major sets. So you saw one of the bigger ones, the Castor Library. There's the interior of Ravenwood, which actually, if you know from the books, changes depending on Macon's mood. So that was a major build. The 2 bedrooms of the 2 leads were built. So there were, half a dozen major sets.
We were very fortunate artistically because lots of movies come to Louisiana because of the tax incentives here. This is a movie we would have come here regardless because creatively it works for the movie. So we didn't have to cheat the look of the movie. We found many wonderful exteriors here that fit perfectly, and then we've done a lot of building because on this kind of movie it requires that as well. It's a combination of both. The movie's based in New Orleans, but we have filmed all over the state of Louisiana. We've been up in St. Francisville, which is several hours from here. We've been up in Coventry and Metairie. So we've used the entire state to create the look of the movie. They got everything you'd expect to find in swamps: snakes, alligators, all the good stuff. New Orleans is a very unique kind of a city. It's really singular in the United States, so it does have those qualities, but I don't think that factored in as much as just finding the looks that we wanted, the moss, the big trees, all the different...
the plantation
homes, etc. This library, the Castor Library, is a library hidden under the town library. It's the secret library, and so the exterior of this is shot at an actual library, and of course they come into this interior, and Alice is trying to figure out what the curse is that's on her and how to unwind that curse. Richard really wanted to do, and I'll say for me it's what made it interesting, because a YA book in and of itself would not really be my cup of tea. If you can't tell, that's probably not the literature that I read. But the idea of taking the story as an analog of what it means to grow up, and am I good, am I bad, who I'm going to be. I mean, this is something everyone struggles with as they're reaching adulthood, and Richard's really used this story as a parable for that that conflict that we all go through. It's a fairly complex book. This wouldn't be translatable to the screen without making some mergers of characters and simplifying some things. It's too dense.
Well, that was always Richard LaGravenes' first choice. He basically wrote it for her, so it's actually,
I have to say, it's a credit. It's a credit to Richard. I mean, most movies in this genre don't have 3 Academy Award winning actors in your adult leads. I mean, so Richard wrote a great script, and that's what attracts talent at the end of it. What we have to do is make a really great movie that the audience loves, and if we succeed, and they do, then of course we're business people. We'd love to have a sequel.
and there are more books.
We'll take it one movie at a time.